Good evening, Fargo-Moorhead area. I'm Tiffany Kim.
And I'm Taylor Christensen from the NDSU News Station.
Our top story tonight: can melatonin be used to treat nicotine addiction? Before diving into this topic, we should first gain some knowledge on the effects nicotine has on our bodies and what happens when we become addicted to it. First of all, nicotine is a potent alkaloid stimulant that is extremely addictive. When a cigarette is smoked, nicotine-rich blood passes from the lungs to the brain within 7 seconds and immediately stimulates the release of many chemical messengers, including acetylcholine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, vasopressin, arginine, dopamine, and beta-endorphin. Nicotine is also metabolized by the liver by cytochrome P450 enzymes. When this occurs, nicotine further increases the level of several neurotransmitters by binding to nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. This results in enhanced pleasure, decreased anxiety, and a state of alert relaxation.
By binding to CNS-type nicotinic receptors, the nicotine molecule causes an increase in dopamine levels in the reward circuits of the brain. In this way, it activates the reward system and generates feelings of pleasure, similar to that caused by cocaine and other stimulants. Studies have shown that smoking tobacco contains monoamine oxidase, an enzyme responsible for breaking down monoamergenic neurotransmitters, such as dopamine in the brain. Once a person becomes addicted to the drug, it is incredibly hard to stop, as the body becomes physically dependent on the chemical changes that are happening within the body. When an individual decides to try and quit smoking, it is common for them to experience withdrawal symptoms. The same as any other drug addict. Such symptoms include tingling in the hands and feet, sweating, nausea, intestinal cramping, headaches, weight gain, and the list goes on. This doesn't even account for the psychological effects it has on the individual, which include depression, intense cravings for nicotine, anxiety, irritability, and insomnia. These symptoms could appear nearly 30 minutes after an individual has had their last cigarette, depending on their level of addiction.
Becoming addicted to nicotine can cause a lifetime of health problems for the individual, as there are so many cancer-causing chemicals within smoking tobacco. This addiction is incredibly dangerous and can be fatal, as more deaths are caused by tobacco than illegal drugs and alcohol combined. It's the largest cause of preventable disease and death in the United States. Every hour, more than 50 Americans die from smoking. That's 440,000 people per year. Because of this statistic, it is easy to see why more research should be done to find more successful ways to help people quit this terrible habit. Now, this brings us to our main story. Can melatonin be used to help people quit? Firstly, melatonin, also known as N-acetyl-5-methoxytryptamine, is a hormone that is produced by the pineal gland that regulates our circadian rhythm.
Biosynthesis of melatonin occurs through hydroxylation, decarboxylation, acetylation, and methylation, starting with L-tryptophan. First, L-tryptophan is hydroxylated on the indole ring by tryptophan hydroxylase to produce 5-hydroxytryptophan. This intermediate is decarboxylated by pyridoxal phosphate and 5-hydroxytryptophan decarboxylase to produce serotonin. It is then converted to N-acetylserotonin to further break down to melatonin with the help from hydroxyindole O-methyltransferase and S-adenosylmethionine. These molecules help this process through the methylation of the hydroxyl group. This process allows melatonin to be readily available in our bodies.
However, when there's a deficiency in melatonin, an individual could experience insomnia, poor concentration, and creates disturbances in the levels of sex hormones. When these sex hormone levels aren't sufficient, it can have powerful effects on the body. Such side effects include negative changes in mood, immunity, reproduction, bone health, and increases the risk for cancer and heart disease. So through the secondary effects melatonin levels have on the body, it is clear to see why scientists first thought of melatonin's medicinal potential.
Cigarette smoke is something that directly affects the amount of melatonin in our body. Many chemicals within smoke causes the liver to break down melatonin more quickly in our body, enabling it to be dispelled faster. When dopamine interacts with its receptors, it has also been seen to inhibit the effects of norepinephrine, which means a decrease in the production and release of melatonin. Therefore, when a person is trying to quit smoking, it would only make sense to try and get the hormones in their body, such as melatonin, back to a normal homeostatic level. Since nicotine is also a vasoconstrictor, which makes it harder for the heart to pump through the constricted arteries, it makes sense to see melatonin being used to oppose this effect, as it can help mediate vasodilation through the activation of MT2 receptors, which is a G-protein-coupled membrane receptor. Because of this, research has also found that melatonin may reverse nicotine-induced myocardial injury by activating antioxidant defense and reducing oxidative stress. It has also been seen to help immensely with the physiological withdrawal symptoms of nicotine by reducing anxiety, restlessness, and cigarette cravings.
Despite its potential to help in the treatment of drug abuse and nicotine addiction, to the best of our knowledge, there has only been a few clinical studies performed to test the effects of melatonin on nicotine addiction, so there is still much to be learned. Experiments and results must be replicated to determine the true mechanisms underlying the beneficial effects. But so far, these effects of melatonin on nicotine addiction look quite promising and cause little side effects. So if you or a loved one at home is having trouble kicking the habit, give melatonin supplements a try and let us know how it affects you. Thank you, Fargo-Moorhead. We hope you have a good night.